Okay, this is like my 10th attempt to film this video. I had to come out to the car because my daughter's asleep inside with supervision, and I didn't want to be noisy because she's really tired and grouchy, and it's really noisy outside. If I open this window up and went outside, there's some guy running a loud machine. It's windy, it's smoky, super smoky from the wildfires now, and I couldn't be in either place. So I'm just going to film from my car. So last night's video was really impromptu. I was really not triggered, I wouldn't say in a bad way, from that reel that I watched that I talked about, but it just triggered a lot of emotion in me because my journey through this drug stuff has been so incredibly long and so incredibly painful, so much loss, yet so much gain now that I'm feeling better. So I appreciate all of your comments. A lot of people really liked kind of that real side and that raw emotion stuff, and that's how I was feeling, so I just decided to quickly film it. So, and I wanted to mention too that I was meeting with Angie Peacock, not necessarily for withdrawal coaching because I don't really feel like I need it anymore, but for business coaching. So I am looking into getting certified myself so I can help other people. I really feel in a way that it's become my calling or part of my calling, and so I'm just in the process of talking to her about how she got started and potentially taking that journey myself. So stay tuned. I'll keep you guys posted with how that goes and what I end up deciding. I'm just not totally sure yet if I have the time to invest in it, taking the course. So getting onto it, I wanted to film, someone had requested I film a physical symptoms video. I know I talk a lot about my mental symptoms because they were the extreme of the extreme, really extreme. But I did suffer a list of physical symptoms as well from both SSRIs, antipsychotics, benzos, and then all of the subsequent withdrawals. So I had adverse events to a lot of the drugs plus the withdrawal that happened when I quit them. So I made a list and I probably forgot some symptoms. So this is not everything, but this is a lot of them, and keep in mind most of these are gone now, and the ones that are left I typically will only get in a wave, which is not very often anymore. And my last wave was like, I made a video about it about, I don't know, 5 weeks ago probably, and it was a long wave. It lasted about 3 weeks, but other than that I really just get the odd blip now, and other than that I feel good most of the time. So here we'll get started. So the first one I have written down, I'm just going to look at my list here, is migraine. So I have had the most crushing, brutal headaches from this, and I don't know that I can attribute the headaches to anything else. I was not someone that suffered through headaches throughout my adulthood. I'm 41 now. It was not something that affected me through my adult years and my teenage years or my childhood years. It's something that's only really affected me since I quit psychiatric drugs, and the pain is often in my temples or right behind my eyes. It will feel like someone's holding a flame up into my eyes or pouring acid in them. I get this burning pain in my eyes that just radiates to my entire head, to where I wear sunglasses day and night in the house, everywhere, because the light makes it worse. And it's just so hard for me to do anything when the headaches get super bad. So I will wear sunglasses a lot. I used to wear them in the beginning of my withdrawal all the time. I would wear sunglasses all the time because I just couldn't handle light. I couldn't handle fluorescent lights, and I couldn't handle sunlight. I was like a vampire. And the headaches, I believe, stem from my eyes, or because it never seems to be from a tension headache, because I've had treatments done by several different practitioners, and they're like, I don't think this pain is coming from your neck or your shoulders or whatever. And chiropractors have said the same thing, or have checked the same areas, and it's never anything super bad. So I believe it's coming from my eyes. And so that brings me into my second symptom, which is burning eyes. I have had the most intense pain in my eyes, like to the point where I can just barely stand the pain. It's just this intense, sharp, throbbing, burning pain. And I've seen numerous optometrists about it. I saw one in my first year off my first drug, so in 2018, and he said, you have dry eyes, and so he gave me eye drops and wet, hot eye mask to wear, and it helped a little bit, but I really think it's a nerve issue. And I did see another optometrist that I really trust. I think it was in 2020 or 2021. And she said, you have very severe dry eyes. The oil surrounding your eyes is not even really, like the glands aren't even really producing oil, which keeps the moisture on the eyes. And so you basically have raw exposed nerves. And that's what she said. And that's exactly how I describe it. It's like raw nerve pain, burning, intense, just this intensity in my eyes that often turns into a severe headache. Sinus issues. So I don't know if it's general to psychiatric drugs or specific to benzos, but I know benzos are mast cell stabilizers and have antihistamine effects. So it makes sense that when you come off them, the histamine in your body is way too high, and so you have allergic type symptoms. So I have a history of sinus issues. I won't lie about that. I had sinus surgery in 2010, and it really made a huge difference for me until I came off these drugs in 2018, and then I have had repeated sinus cold type symptoms ever since. And so that's why I've had to take antibiotics sometimes, again, because of my long-standing diabetes. And if you don't nip infections in the bud, sometimes it can lead to, in severe cases, ketoacidosis, which is a life-threatening diabetes complication. Your blood becomes acidic and it's fatal. And so I don't mess around with infections, although I feel like my body is getting stronger and better able to cope with infections and virus type symptoms the longer I'm off these poisons. So I've had a lot of recurring sinus issues and upper respiratory type symptoms. So that's 3. The 4th one is burning brain. This is a pretty distressing symptom, to feel like your head is on fire. It's like a cranial burning, and it goes all over the top of my head. And sometimes, not always, it will lead to or happen simultaneously with a feeling that I can only describe as, well, either pins and needles going on in different patches of my head, tingling, and also I get this feeling on my face like someone is splashing hot oil on different parts of my face. Or sometimes I've described it as spiders that are on fire crawling all over my face and my head. I don't know what that is. I'm sure it's a neurological symptom. I don't know what exactly it is. Overactive, hot, burning brain, face, itchy. You'll notice me itching sometimes in videos, and that is, I think, again, too related to histamine. Itchy skin, itchiness. It's like an allergic type symptom. So I did have a live blood analysis done, whether or not you believe in that. It was really cool to see. I had it done by a skilled naturopath, and so I was able to see my live blood in real time, and you could see the excess histamine in my blood. She pointed it out to me. It was interesting, to say the least. Okay, so then goes into the bodily nerve symptoms. So this is tied in with inner akathisia. I have several different ways of describing it. So a churning in my stomach, and internal explosions. I have them especially in my torso, so in my chest, in my stomach. It's like a churning, an agitated, a churning and a grinding almost inside my torso. It feels like my nerves are exploding, or like they're pulsating, jumping. It's like, you know how when you get scared and you feel like you jumped out of your skin, but it would happen continuously. So that's another one that's very distressing. And then it can lead to that internal restlessness, which then leads, in my case, to muscle jerking, muscle pulling, dystonia type movements, which I have a diagnosed movement disorder, and it almost always happens in correlation with these churning, shocking, pulsating, exploding feelings. My own theory is it has something to do with the vagus nerve. Something is definitely awry with that, like that big, huge nerve that goes through here. Whatever's going on with it, I think that's what's causing those symptoms. I've talked to many people that have something similar, and it seems to often be associated with like the chest, stomach area. So I've had a lot of that. And the only time that I paced and felt like I had really the the external akathisia was when I took an antipsychotic. I only took it for 5 days. I've talked about it in other videos. It literally made me poop blood, like an extensive amount of blood for a month. And the doctors were, a psychiatrist who prescribed that particular medication was not concerned, tried to tell me I had hemorrhoids, which I had never had before or had diagnosed before. Went and saw another doctor for a second opinion, just a regular physician, and he said, you have nothing going on externally down there. I don't know what's causing the bleeding. And I mean, if you look up the side effects of that drug, gastrointestinal bleeding is listed right on there. So that was the only time I paced around, and I remember pacing around in the psychiatrist clinic and her being like, you look very uncomfortable. I'm like, yeah, I couldn't sit down. But for me, the internal restlessness, akathisia, has been the most distressing, and then what it causes to the mind. But this video is about physical symptoms. So body burning. So the burning is not just localized to my head. I've had it all over my body, burning skin, burning. Everything just feels like it's on fire, but there's no external rash or external redness. It's this internal burning, but it feels like it's close to the surface of the skin. Again, nerve related, I'm sure. I don't know what causes it, if it's inflammation, just overactivity, but I've had a lot of that. Deep bone crushing pain. So this always, again, goes together with the pulsating, the shocking, the churning, the burning, and then I just get this crushing pain. I used to get it really bad in my thighs and nothing would touch it. Like back before I had akathisia, when I was just in my first SSRI withdrawal, I wasn't as sensitive, and so I would take Tylenol, Advil combinations, and it didn't touch the pain at all, but just the pain. And I remember in my first year off benzos and the polydrugging, just the pain was so bad. I remember just my arms were almost locked in a folded position, and I would take the other hand and try to stretch out the arm, and it was just pain. It would feel like my skin was going to rip. The pain was so intense, and the tension was just, I felt like an 80-year-old woman who had absolutely no flexibility and no, what is the term? Like muscle or elasticity. Like I just didn't feel like I had any of that. Hair falling out, so I had a lot of that at the beginning as well. Just my hair was falling out, and I have a picture in one of my videos, I think it's my 60-second video, where you can see how my hair's all broken off around my head. And that was before I had a baby, so I know the baby hair and the broken hair can be hormonal, but this was before I was even pregnant. So I had a lot of broken hair. I would try to put it into a ponytail, and it just looked, my hair just looked fried. And I really think that the hair, skin, nails are a good indication of what's going on internally. And my hair was like a broom. It was not healthy at all and broken and just like straw. So I had that. I had fatigue mixed with insomnia. So I had, in my very first withdrawal before I reinstated at 2.5 years off. My first withdrawal, I had insomnia for 18 months. It was on and off, but then it would always go in these stretches where I wouldn't sleep at all for 3 days. So I couldn't hold a job. I tried and tried and tried. The only kind of job I could handle was a casual job where if I was feeling good in the morning or had slept, I could choose to go in or not, but it took a real toll on my financial status. So, but it's all I could handle at the time. And that would be mixed with intense fatigue. But that was only in my first withdrawal. I didn't have that once I was polydrugged and given benzos. Then I just had insomnia. I didn't have the fatigue, except when I was further off those groupings of drugs. And then I started getting, I think it was from like adrenal crashing. I would be so jacked up all day, and then I would crash at night. It was like my adrenals were just burnt out. But I never really felt fatigue during the day. Just at night I was so tired from the constant mental anguish and the jacked up nervous system symptoms. Tinnitus, I still have tinnitus in a wave, but when I'm in a window, which is often now, my head is completely silent. But I can almost always tell when I'm going to go into a wave because my ears will start ringing. That only happened when I took multiple when I was polydrugged and put on and taken off benzos. I did not have any tinnitus in my first, straight SSRI withdrawal. It's gotten very loud at times, but I almost don't even notice it anymore, even when I do have it in a wave. Light sensitive and sound sensitive, I still have that. So I bought these noise canceling headphones because just 5 months ago or 6 months ago, when I had to move out of my moldy apartment and into this new apartment, I had very loud downstairs neighbors, and it was just, I could not handle. And my mom would say, like, they're not even being that loud, but to me, everything just sounds so heightened. And that's something that I still struggle with. So I went and bought these expensive noise canceling headphones, and it's been worth every penny. So light and sound sensitivity, I still have that, and exercise sensitivity. So I have been exercise sensitive this whole journey, which makes me so angry and upset, because I used to be someone who worked out all the time. I was in very good shape, and I've gained like 40 pounds. Granted, I did also have a baby, but just my body just kind of went to crap when I got off, when I took these drugs and got off them. Before I ever took them, I just had like the ideal body. I did. It just makes me so angry, because I can't even, the only exercising I can do now is light swimming and walking, even this far off. If I do try to push myself through it, the nervous system symptoms will get jacked up again. My muscles will start jerking, and I'll get like this swelling that goes on. My face will swell up. It's really strange. And sometimes I'll just feel physically nauseous, but it doesn't last very long, but it's still something that it's just not worth it for me. So I just walk and swim. Brain zaps, I only got those in my very first SSRI withdrawal, and they lasted about a month. Metallic taste in mouth, I've had that off and on as well. Body odor, so this is a big one. I just have never ever struggled with body odor my whole life. I used to have, well, I guess you could still call a condition called hyperhidrosis, which is excessive sweating. I've had it since I was a child. And then from 2007 to 2015, so before any of this withdrawal stuff happened, I would get Botox for it. Incredible amounts of Botox. I had injected into my armpits, my feet, and my hands. Very painful, but so worth it. My insurance covered it because I had it severely, and it was considered a medical necessity because it was limiting my ability to function. Like, I was constantly having to change clothes. I couldn't shake people's hands. I would slide around in sandals or anything where my feet weren't wearing socks that would absorb the sweat. So I actually would sprain my ankles if I would try to wear sandals. So got all that Botox, which now I know is probably not the best thing to be putting into my body, but I was clueless back then. And even then, when I had this severe hyperhidrosis, I never had body odor. It was like a clean sweat. And ever since these drugs, especially the reinstatement and polydrugging and benzos, rank body odor. It's like a mix between onions, skunk, and ammonia. That's how I would, and whenever I'm in a wave, the body odor is just rank, and nothing gets rid of it. But windows, again, I don't smell at all. I don't even have to wear deodorant in windows. And it's just, I think it's a detoxing thing. That's my personal opinion, again, or hormonal or mixed. Chemical sensitivity. So I realized that I didn't have this as severely as other people do, in the sense that I know it can really trigger people's akathisia and stuff like that, all different kinds of man-made synthetic chemicals. For me, it would create an allergic type reaction. So all kinds of things. So for a long time, I would avoid as much as possible anything in or on my skin. Hair dye, shampoo, like I had a hair dye reaction, so I learned from that. Shampoo, lotions, perfumes, fragrances, cleaners, all those kind of things that most people don't think about, I know can get very severe. Again, it's like that mast cell histamine stuff from, it seems like benzos are the worst culprit, but I think any of these drugs can cause it. But I would definitely get like a lot of those respiratory and allergic type symptoms and reactions to those chemicals. So I avoided them for a long time. I'm much less sensitive now, and things like artificial sweeteners and all of that would not sit well with me. I didn't do well on them, so I avoided them for a very long time, which was super hard because being diabetic, you're kind of conditioned to befriend artificial sweeteners because they don't spike your blood sugar and they're this wonderful alternative to sugar. So, but yeah, chemical crap, I avoided it for a very long time. Muscle jerking I've talked about. I have videos with me, my muscles jerking. You can watch them. I used to have full body jerking, full body involuntary movements. That's what got me diagnosed with a movement disorder by a neurologist and by my physician, my family physician. I finally found an amazing one after a lot of doctor hopping and frustration and tears. So yeah, a lot of it's just restricted now to one arm for me now, but it used to be my entire body. And it's only in a wave, or only when I've really overdone things. So done way too much cardio, which I don't really do anymore because I learned that lesson several times. Too much stress, not enough sleep. But even then, it's very minimal now. I don't really have it, or it'll do one quick thing and it'll stop. Twitching. So my eyes used to twitch all the time. My lips used to twitch. Just, you know, that if you're really overtired and you have like an eyelid twitch, it was like those small fiber twitches. I used to have that. I looked, I'm sure, like a drug addict. Lots of twitching between the jerking and the twitching. I mean, I just looked a mess. Extreme tension. So it would feel like I had this really bad in my upper arms. I had it both from SSRI withdrawal and the subsequent drugs I took. It would feel like there was a boa constrictor wrapped around each arm and just tightening and tightening and tightening, or like a wood clamp that was being tightened. And it was just, the tension was extreme. And I would also sometimes get it in my stomach area, like my torso. Again, it was like that vagus nerve area. I would get this tightening, like crazy tightening. And then sometimes, especially at the very, very beginning of my benzo withdrawal and polydrugging, I mean, my stomach would contract and my whole body would pull forward. Lots and lots and lots of muscle and nerve symptoms I've had. Exercise sensitivity, I talked about. Vagina agitation, that's a very strange symptom. It's like hyperarousal or almost like PGAD, but not really. And that I've only had a little bit, but it's actually way more distressing than it sounds. So for anybody who has PGAD, I really sympathize with you. It's awful. Even having a partial sensation of that was terrible. Cortisol rushes. So again, when I reinstated, even at low doses, and then I was trying different SSRIs, antipsychotics, coming off benzos, trying to microtaper, and then being cold turkeyed, I remember just trying to rest, and I just couldn't, because the cortisol or whatever just rushes through the body and then rushes back up, and then it was like a gunshot in my head, bang, and it would wake me up all the time. And I just could never get a proper sleep. So often I wouldn't sleep at all. My longest stretch was 5 days with no sleep. And I would dread going to sleep or going to bed, because I would literally stand in my room and stare at my bed, just being like, no, I like just this dread and fear because of the symptoms I would experience. And that was just physical. And the mental was so next level for me. So I spent a lot of months sleeping with my mom. I was at the time 37, 38, and in bed with my mom, and she would have to, I'm not even kidding or exaggerating when I say this, rock me to sleep at night. My nervous system was so jacked and I was in so much distress and so much involuntary movement. She would hold me really, really tight and just rock me. And it was soothing, you know, and I don't like to make comparisons or say that I know firsthand what it feels like to have a sensory processing disorder or autism, but I worked with individuals with autism for many years, and I see a lot of similarities in what I would perceive as an outsider that they were experiencing and what I felt. So they, you know, often have to wear the noise canceling headphones and the sunglasses and a lot of the rocking. I did a lot of rocking, and they like the tight gestures or the tight embraces. If you're familiar with Temple Grandin, she's a very well-known, probably the most well-known person with autism in the world, and she built her own hugging machine where it would squeeze her body really tight, and that's how I felt. And just everything was just so overstimulating, and just the pain and the rocking and the moving, and it was, I'm not saying it's the same thing, but I'm saying there's some type of mechanism going on in both of those, both this and autism, that there's I think it's something similar in the brain or nervous system, not necessarily the cause, but the mechanism that's causing the symptoms. There's got to be some type of crossover there. That's just my personal opinion. Again, bomb in head and then heart palpitations. So I've only had heart palpitations when I'm really bad. But that's a distressing symptom too. Again, I think it's from too much adrenaline, cortisol. And I'm no expert, obviously, but I've learned a hell of a lot in 63 months. I've documented my journey for so long. Like I said, I had an old channel, this channel, and talking to hundreds and hundreds of people throughout this. And there's a lot of similarities, and the people who healed as well, there are some crossover similarities. So I personally think that I don't think there's one cause. I don't think it's just as simple as these drugs have caused changes in the brain and nervous system that then have to be undone. That's obviously part of it, but I think there's other issues as well. An overly toxic body. I do think that there's liver issues in this, and some type of neurotoxic or excitotoxic, something going on where people can't metabolize, people can't, their toxic cups, so to speak, are overflowing and their body just can't process. And I think that's why, you know, there's so much reactions to everything. It's just a toxic overload. Plus, obviously, there's histamine issues, and that's part of it as well. Plus, whatever changes the drug made. I think there might be some gut issues involved with that. And I don't know. And it just seems that people who are really bad have histories of, again, multiple drug use. I don't mean illicit drugs, obviously, but I mean different drugs, whether it's psychiatric drugs, birth control, IVF drugs. Sometimes it's illicit drugs, but not very often. You know, on and off psych meds, and who knows, like, I can't think of the other examples off the top of my head just while I'm rambling here, but I think there's multiple mechanisms of action here. I don't know. I don't think if it was just as simple as one thing, I just don't think it would create these severe of symptoms for so long for some people. But anyway, that's the list of symptoms I can think of. It's a lot, I know, and I'm sure I'm missing some, but hopefully you found this helpful. I think I am going to do a live Q&A. I will make a post about it and just make sure that I have time set aside so I can answer your questions. I'll try and do it for as long as needed, whatever questions you have, and I will try and give enough notice so that you can hop on. And again, if I get into the more formal side of coaching, I'll let you guys know, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.